only get 30 again.
That's a risk we have to take.
A cough drop queen? That's funny. Who ever heard of a cough drop queen? Where does this old West road go?
Goes on and on. Due west.
How far is due west?
Way out past the county hospital.
Is the county hospital the end of the world? Oh, Mom, somebody think we're going to the moon. We'll be all right.
Yes, I know you will. Now you look after David, won't you?
Sure. Just don't follow me around like you do at home.
Hi, Joey.
Oh, Joey.
Do you know what time it is?
I know, but Orion's in a scene and it won't happen again for 6 years.
Move over. Why, that is sure clear.
Everybody's going on trips to the bottom of the canyon. On a mule, starting in a half an hour. There's real guides and everything. I'm just an old girl, that's all you are. Just an old girl. I'm not just an old girl. I'll be squeezing you. Fool you. Don't cry, I'll buy you another one. Gee, you're slick, Gary.
Oh!
Good evening, Mr. Jordan. Good evening, Mr. Jordan. Evening. This plane just blew up. Going to pieces. Julie's got measles all over. Uncle Brown said she looked like a leopard. Uncle Brown put it up so we couldn't go upstairs and catch it. Mama, can I have the measles? When can I have the measles? Oh, be quiet, Lucy. Oh. It's broke, I guess. Can you make a marble airplane?
No.
Our daddy could.
Charlie, look just like their father, don't they? Both of them. Image of you.
Oh, do you think so?
Here's my cup.
Are you positive you've got room for all of us? I think it's time for you to wash your hands for dinner, darling.
Why? I don't mind dirty hands. Why does everybody else care so much?
Good evening. Jimmy, you're wanted. Mr. Jimmy Hunt. He was standing right there with me, and he couldn't believe what he just saw in the last few minutes. His life flashing before his eyes. It was put together by a friend of mine who came all the way from Europe just to do this. Sarah, stand up and take a bow where you are. Where are you, Sarah? Are you right there? Let's see you. There she is. Sarah Hendrickson put it together for you. She's right over there. Have a seat, sir. Well, you should be fine. The first thing we have to talk about right now is the movie that we just saw. I've seen this film 30 times in my life. In college, on drinking nights. And if it looked this clear then, I may not have survived. What did you, first of all, Ignite Films and our buddy Scott McQueen, congratulations on a beautiful restoration. Your impressions on seeing it on the big screen, sir?
This is probably about the third time that I've seen this on the big screen. When it first was released, and then I guess one other time, and then tonight. And all the rest of the times, I was like everybody else. I saw it on black and white TV. And most people didn't realize that it was in color. And they've done such a fantastic job. I think this is a clearer picture than it was when it was first released. And, it brings a little bit of sense of, I guess I want to say a little bit of sense of pride to myself for the fact that with $300,000 and the 3.5 weeks of shooting, that they made a film this good.
To follow up on that, I think the casting was really good, especially you. You are the star of the picture.
Yeah.
That was my first starring role. You know, I'd always been, and I guess, you know, always been one of the with players. And, you know, finally this was my first starring role.
You're the star this weekend at the Cinecon Classic Film Festival, and we're thrilled to see this. Tell us, yes, go, please, applaud. This is big fun. You've got to tell us, because we who watched this on television, maybe some of us did see it in the theater at that time, but what memories do you have of actually making this film?
The fact that I never worked so hard in my whole life. As a child actor, you'd come to work. It seemed like we took our little lunch pail and we went to work, you know, every day at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, and you got home around 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and had to memorize your lines for the next day. But it was, making this film was probably the hardest thing that I had done at that point. And it was one of the things that I think helped me make up my mind that I really was about ready for retirement. And at 14 years old, that's exactly what I did. I retired out of the movie business and lived another life.
This particular picture, and I should tell you, Jimmy and I have met now 3 or 4 times, and we've been talking about his career. And when I mentioned all of these wonderful stars that you worked with, you told me, well, they were just adults to me. It didn't mean much. And we're talking about Katharine Hepburn, Claudette Colbert, and stars of that magnitude. And when I mentioned them to you, you told me...
You know, I had to have my parents had to tell me how big a star they were, because, you know, as a child, you don't know. You know, you go watch a movie, and at that time in my life, we weren't watching a lot of movies at that time. It was in the 40s and 50s, and we were lucky enough to be able to go along with our parents to see a movie. But it was, yeah, I never realized just how many great stars that I actually worked with, and had a great experience doing that, because I never had a bad experience in all of the 40-odd movies that I made. I never had a bad experience of making a movie like you see some of these child actors and actresses have, you know, in their life. So, no, I never had a horror story.
So for us who grew up with television, your mother was played by someone that most of us had a crush on, because we watched the Abbott and Costello show. And Hillary Brooke played your mom.
Right, oh yeah, yeah. You know, a really nice lady. I mean, Hillary Brooke and Leif Erikson, they were great. And Leif Erikson, I have a little story I want to tell you, Stan, and the audience, is that in the movie, you remember when the police are coming, or just before the police came back, Dad had been sucked down in the sand, and he tells his son, you know, what are you doing here? And I move up closer to him, and he swings and hits me. Well, I missed my mark, and so I was a little bit closer than I should have been. And if you think that was a pretty good scene where I go flying onto the floor, I went flying onto the floor. And so, yes, method acting.
Yeah. That was quite a method, yes.
Yes. Oh.
But I was thinking that this is the first time I've seen it in this new restoration, and the first time I was sitting there, my sister's with me, and I went, did he really get hit? And then when they did the flashback, when you're running, and I saw, I went, he got hit. You really did. So speaking of safety for children on the set, what was it like when you were working in films? Did you have someone who was there on the set, a school teacher, a welfare worker? Or?
We always had a school teacher, and you had to get in 3 hours of school every day. And sometimes school came at 15 intermission, like little things where you were there for 15 minutes, then you went back to the set. You'd come back, another 15 minutes, and then back didn't do anything that would be detrimental to the child's health. It was almost like having a private tutor sometimes, because I was the only one making the movie at that point, or maybe 2 or 3 kids, and so yeah, it was almost like having a private tutor.
So how did you get into show business?
You've heard the saying, the right place at the right time. 6 years old, going to school about 6 blocks from MGM Studios. That's where I grew up, near Culver City area. And they needed somebody to play the part of Van Johnson as a little boy. And they looked through Hollywood and couldn't find anybody, and so they came out to the schools. And they picked a couple of us out of the class, and I think I was in the 2nd grade at that time, and we went to MGM and had I guess a screen test. I was disappointed, I think, because the fact that there were no cowboys and Indians, and I got the part. And I made 6 movies at that point. And Stan had asked me about, schooling and stuff like that again. And yes, I went to the Little Red Schoolhouse on MGM. And some of my classmates were, Roddy McDowell and Elizabeth Taylor. And I told Stan that I got to sit on Elizabeth Taylor's lap. And I'm not going to tell you what he said after that.
They know me. They know what I might have said.
Well, I'll just put it this way. I beat Richard Burton there. I told him I wasn't going to say that, but my wife will probably beat me. But,
That's a fantastic story. Now, you, incidentally, a little trivia for the Cinecon fans. You and Janine Perreau and George Chakiris appear in Song of Love. I mean, not together, but they're in the movie. So I found that fascinating in doing research.
It was, Janine, who was, when I say a good friend, when we were working together, she was a good friend. And then we haven't seen each other for 70 years. And this is going to be the first time that I've seen Janine in those 70 years. I've talked to her sister, Guy, but I've never had an opportunity, and I tell you, she's still number 1. She's really a good little young lady, so.
That's very sweet. Very sweet. So what I'm going to do now, since I know that all of the actors that you worked with, that we revere and love, were people you worked with, let me throw out a few names and you can maybe relate an interesting story. You worked briefly with Red Skelton.
Worked with Red Skelton. I played the mean little kid, Junior, and I had to come up with that accent that he used, and I still don't remember how I learned to do that. I mean, it came out in the movie, and there was a scene right at the end where he gets all of his fuller brushes finally and leaves, and as he's walking out, he steps on my roller skate, and he does a flip in the air and comes down. Well, Red Skelton did all of his own falls and pratfalls and things. And so he did that, and I came out and I was supposed to say, "You ruined my widdle skate." And I think I blew my line. Well, I know I did. I blew the line, so we had to do it over again. And I think we had to do it twice. And on the 2nd time, he called me aside and said, "Hey, kid, it's starting to hurt a little bit, so let's get this right."
One of your first films that you really enjoyed was a film called The Mating of Millie that you did. You worked with Glenn Ford and Evelyn Keyes, who is a past Cinecon honoree.
Yes, I think that was the film that I'd made 6 movies at MGM, and then I think I made Mating of Millie right after that. And the story was based upon a little boy whose mother gets killed, who lives in the same area and with Evelyn Keyes, and she's an unmarried lady who wants to adopt a little boy. And so the whole story goes around her trying to find someone to let her adopt this little boy. And Glenn Ford was one of the actors in the movie. He's the male lead, and he was a great guy. I mean, he was really a nice man to me. I never really had a bad experience with any of the actors and actresses that I played with in any of the movies, except maybe one, and I'll explain that to you. He taught me Glenn Ford taught me how to play marbles on the set. You know, there we were, you got down and we were shooting marbles, and so that was kind of cool.
Tell me about working with Fred MacMurray and one of my favorites, Claudette Colbert. This is Family Honeymoon.
Okay, Family Honeymoon, and this is a movie that I worked with Janine's brother and sister in, and they were outstanding people. They were really kind to us, and I don't know. He's one of my favorite actors. Glenn Ford and Fred MacMurray and one other, and we'll talk about that one other a little bit later.
You also have the distinction of having played the son of somebody who became the President of the United States.
Yeah.
Perhaps you'd like to explain that one.
Yes, I would. Yes, Ronnie and I have a special place in our hearts with each other. No, Ronald Reagan was my dad in a movie called Louisa, and he was really a nice man and a good man. And he was just a regular Joe, and he was a good guy, and that was a good movie to make.
So what happened when this regular Joe became President of the United States? What were you thinking?
Well, I have to tell you that I voted for him, and the fact that the night that he was elected President of the United States, they played Louisa on television.
Nice.
So, yeah.
There's another memorable film you made, well, you've made several, but one that always meant something to me growing up, because I did not have a large family. It was just me and my two beautiful sisters. You had a film where Myrna Loy played your mom in Cheaper by the Dozen.
Yes, that was a fun movie to make, because most of the time you make a movie, there's one or two children on the set, but that's it. And with Cheaper by the Dozen, we had at least 10 of us that were, they could get up and walk anyway. And so we had a lot of fun. I didn't tell Stan this story, and I'm going to tell it right now. One of the scenes was the fact that we were supposed to be in Nantucket, and so they made that. We didn't fly back there. We just went down to Seal Beach, which is down near Long Beach, and we made the movie there. And while we were there, we stayed in a hotel in Long Beach. And at that time, I guess it was the #1 hotel, and it was a 15-story hotel. And we, myself and the young actor that played my older brother, we were on the 15th floor, and we would take the little paper cups that you have like the little silver holders, and you put the paper cup in for water and stuff. Well, we would fill those cups up without the holder, and from the 15th floor we would pop. And I never realized how bad that could be. If it hit somebody, we could have done some real damage. And then also the fact that we would get on the elevator late at night when the elevator operator was gone. He'd leave, and so we could control it by ourselves. And a bunch of us kids would get in there, and we'd start for the 15th floor, and we'd put that handle down, and here we'd go. And about the 3rd floor, we just let it up, and then hang on. We'd hit at the bottom, and we'd bounce off those springs and go. I mean, we're lucky we didn't kill each other. And, yeah.
You were a terrific crier. I mean, I remember growing up as a little boy watching Cheaper by the Dozen. In that scene, you are the one that announces that your father, played by Clifton Webb, had died. And you were just bawling your eyes out. But you were good at that, weren't you?
I learned how to do that. There's two things in movies that people find hard to do. The hardest thing to do is to be a good laugher. Laughing at something that is, well, I guess, most of the time it's spontaneous. You see something funny and you laugh. Trying to do it on cue is really difficult. Crying is another one, but crying, I think most of us have enough sensitivity in us that we can, well, we had a couple of movies, that movie, Cheaper by the Dozen, where I had to tell them, our daddy died, my dad was working for a company, and he went back to Kentucky to open a plant for him back there. And he was gone for a couple months. And so while he was gone, we filmed Cheaper by the Dozen. And so in my mind, I saw him coming home on a plane and the plane crashing. And so I could get myself worked up and I could cry. And then there was another movie that I made with Janine Perreau's sister, Gigi, and her brother Gerald, and it was called Family Honeymoon. And in that one, there was a cry scene in that thing, and it seemed like we had the whole day, all we did was cry. And so what we did is we made up this story about this little girl who had a horse, and the horse died, and she buried him, and then she'd go and visit the grave, and we'd make up little stories about her being there, and next thing you know, we're all crying again. So do the scene.
Well, of course, you worked with many other people, and if I went down the list of everyone from Bing Crosby on it would just be crazy. But this is the part of our interview where I get to play Ralph Edwards and bring somebody up here that you haven't seen in 70 years. The last time I saw her, she was still waiting for the shrimp cocktail at the restaurant, but I think she got that by now. She did. She was your co-star in a few films, and it gives us great pleasure, and it's maybe a surprise to some of you, but we have one of his co-stars. Kathy died of a cerebral hemorrhage, but she really didn't die, because she's here. Would you please welcome Janine Perreau? It's so nice to see you again. Here, we have another one for you right over here.
I was dead, now I'm dead.
What was it like seeing your friend?
Hello.
Great, okay.
I'm alive again. I checked the back of my neck to make sure, and it's okay.
Tell us what it's like after seeing him for so long.
As I said before, Jimmy was my first crush.
I just found that out tonight.
I know, he thought Gigi was his love, but nope. Actually, it was really such a joy to see Jimmy tonight. I was in Song of Love with him. It was my first film. He was, of course, an experienced professional, and his job was to chase me with a tomahawk and hit me over the head, which he did. And then we worked in Weekend with Father together, with Tommy Reddick and Gigi, Jimmy, me, and Patricia Neal. That was, Song of Love, of course, was not bad because I had Katharine Hepburn, and she was a delight. Do you remember her being a delight?
Yes. Oh yeah. And I was a real professional. I think it was my first or third film I had made. So but yeah,
Yes.
This lady was great.
And then when we did this movie, Invaders from Mars, seeing it tonight was absolutely fabulous. I had no idea it was so intense. I was scared to death. I kept going, I sometimes wonder if it isn't buried somewhere in there. But no, that was a wonderful movie, and Jimmy was superb. Holy moly!
And I understand that after you gave up your career by choice, you went to school, of course, and I mention it now because of the beautiful building we're in. You did military service.
Right. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be in the United States Army, and I was stationed in Germany, and I was in the Army Security Agency, and what we did was we intercepted and broke code. And there's a famous logo that goes along with the Army Security Agency, and it says, it shows an eagle's talon holding on to a lightning bolt, and it says, "In God we trust, all others we monitor." And so, and my son actually got me a shirt with that. So, but yeah, it was a great experience, and also the fact that I got to spend almost 3 years in Germany, and met my wife there. And come January, we will be married 60 years.
God bless. God bless. Well, Jimmy, I want to, on behalf of everybody here, especially in this building with other veterans here, Jimmy, we thank you for your service in keeping us safe for the time that you were there.
I didn't
from
realize.
From the Martians, yeah.
Martians, yes.
Now, Janine, you have something to do there? She has.
Wow.
I gotta say, this little piece of loveliness, I give with great joy the Cinecon Legacy Award to Jimmy Hunt. He deserves every inch.
I have a special place for this. I told Stan that I cleaned off an area in my little office, and this is going to go up there. And a lot of times people, they talk about getting their Oscars and stuff like that, but at this point, this means more than an Oscar to me. Yeah. And I thank Cinecon for thinking enough of the work that I've done that I could get something like this. Yeah. And thank you, Janine, for being the one that gave it to me, too.
With all of the years, with all the wonderful performances you gave when you were younger, it's important for you to know that part of our goal at Cinecon is to keep preservation alive. We're not the only festival that does that, so you should know that at some point, we who are parents and grandparents will have grandchildren that will be able to see your work live on for many decades to come. That's how good you are, Jimmy.
Thank you. I hope you don't invite me back for your grandkids. Hey, I'm lucky enough to be here now, and I probably won't smell so good at that.
Well, the man who smells good now, please congratulate Mr. Jimmy Hunt.